So, the CEO of Crunchyroll, I believe the CEO of Crunchyroll, told everyone online that most people prefer to watch their anime dubbed and subbed. And to me, that's a no-brainer. That's not much of a big surprise there. But I do like to talk about it now that it has been resurfacing over time. The great debates of the longest weeb debate ever, subs versus dubs. It's always been something that's been going on for many, many years. Well, at least a couple of decades here in the West, because let's face it, a lot of us weebs weren't really watching anime until the 90s, or even older people. I mean, older people mean me, are probably watching this in the 80s and stuff like that. And they had to really search for it back in the day. Heck, I remember my dad would get special imported VHSs and stuff like that, and it was nuts. But yeah, this is the longest debate and stuff like that. Longer than Waifu Wars, longer than genre or who can beat who or what's the best anime. This is the longest one. This one sticks. In the subs versus dub debate, to me, it's always just been a thing of fun. Not something I really took seriously, but it all has its pros and cons, and I do mean on both sides. Let's start with dubs. You know, dubs is something we all were introduced to, more generally, especially if we were born in the 90s or 80s and stuff like that. Or heck, even the early 2000s, we were introduced to dubs because it was so hard to get your hands on a subtitled anime, or at least in its purest form, because not many imports, Blockbuster didn't have everything, or Video Store or Video Hut, they didn't have it. So you could only really watch it on TV, which was because of 4Kids or Deke. Deke was not that known for it, even though they did a lot of it, but especially the Sailor Moon ones and others, Deke made it funny. That's what I'm saying. Deke made it funny, but 4Kids made it iconic in a way. As we were watching Fox Kids or the CW and stuff like that, we would watch it on 4Kids. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, One Piece, Shaman King, Kirby, many, many, many more. We would have those dubs. And because of that, we grew up being anime fans back in the day, because watching those shows back in the day was very unique. It felt different. But as you get older, you realize the amount of censorship that happened with those animes. A lot of censorship. A lot of things were changed. A lot of accents were mixed up. Yo from Shaman King, like the cheeseburgers, even though in the original show, he never even mentions cheeseburgers whatsoever. Or how Ren, a person who's Chinese, has a British speaking accent. Or how every other Chinese person has a British speaking accent on the show. Now, yes, this is messed up. But it's funny how I actually prefer the British speaking Chinese people compared to the dubs that we have now of it. I don't know why, it just fits. It just fits. Then you also have that amazing opening from Shaman King. Or with Pokemon, you have some censorship, the jelly-filled donuts, the rolling sub, some of the fight scenes and stuff like that, some blocked episodes. But of course, you would have Ash's name, which is actually Satoshi instead of Ash Ketchum. But his name became very iconic here, along with the amazing opening and stuff like that. We had those things, not to mention Ash's sick burns that he would give people as well. And of course, Pokemon Karaoke Mon. So dubs had its big impact on us that made us really enjoy anime at a very young age. And of course, you had One Piece with its iconic rap opening. And some like it, some hate it. I like it for one reason, especially when they introduce a new team member, and the rap will come more and more about each team member as time goes on, which was nice. But then it got kind of stiff because it was doing too much. But anyways, there's a lot of censorship in the One Piece anime, with guns, the blood, the violence, and stuff like that. A lot of censorship. So because of that, or Sanji and his lollipop. So we couldn't enjoy it in its purest form because we were kids. So they don't think kids in the West can handle that kind of stuff, whereas kids in other countries can handle it because we cradle our kids here. That's just the truth. We baby them a lot. Now, that being said, we have subtitles. So we get anime in its rawest, purest form. We get to hear that sweet Japanese voice. We get to hear those Japanese openings. We get uncensored and everything, uncut, the way it's supposed to be, and it's nice and well and good. You get to see that the boobas, the fan service, the blood, the gore, all that stuff. You get introduced to even more. But even then, back in the day, fan sites for the animes was hard to find. Watching anime and subs, especially the 3-part videos, if you know what I mean. The 3-part videos. Man, what a time to be on YouTube. And then it was hard to find a decent anime site that didn't have a constant buffer. Crunchyroll was around back then too, when it was a pirate site and stuff. But I was mostly watching my shows on One Piece of Bleach or Pimp Anime. Yeah, so there was a site called Pimp Anime. And believe it or not, it had the best, and I do mean the best, surf media to watch anime on. And then you're able to also download anime as time goes on, but only in like 2 or 3 parts as well. It was nuts. But as time goes on, you can download a full video of anime and don't have a problem. Times were different back in the day, people. It really was. I remember when I used to download the entire Index series, but I had to download it with each part. It was 2 parts of it, so I had to type it in by the category, so I wouldn't get mixed up when I'm putting it back on. The difficult times, man. The difficult times. It was annoying. Then, of course, there was stage view, but I'm getting too much ahead of myself. I'm talking about the subs. But sometimes you will have subs. Some subs won't be properly translated because not everyone truly understood the Japanese language, so some things just felt weird and stuff. So it wasn't just the dubs problem, it was also the subs. You would have terrible, terrible subs. Or subs will be hard to read because some idiot wants to make everything all colorful and stuff, and it was an eyesore. Like, oh my god, I can't watch this. This was annoying to deal with. And of course, now we're in today's age now where we have different problems. Sometimes we're watching the subs, but the subs will have an error, or no one's subbing the anime at all. Because when there was an anime that was going to be subbed by an official site or company, we would have fans to sub it. But unfortunately, we don't even have that anymore. So there'll be times where certain animes won't be properly subbed. I remember reviewing Black Rock Shooter, Dawnfall. I couldn't find an official sub at a time. But then as time went on, they finally cleared that up and even gave it an English dub release. So there was that. Now, we also have the dubs. The dubs now, its main problem is sometimes the voices don't sound right, or they keep using the same voice actors, but they are fixing on that. But you also have the difference when it comes to political agenda. Yes, political agenda, where I can't stand. Where people will try to say, oh, what's the big deal? It's just one little thing off of the script. And it's more than just one little thing. It's a lot of one little thing. So Kobayashi's Dragon Maid's Gaining Infinity, and plenty of others where you're watching a dubbed anime and you will you will hear it and you'll be like kind of annoyed with it. They're talking about feminism, Gamergate, patriarchy, and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not what they say. That's not what they say within the anime. But they do it anyway because they like to slip their political agenda into the anime every now and then. And you don't have to do it. It's called being professional. You put your feelings aside. And the only time you use your feelings is to play the role. Be the voice actor. But sometimes they want to slide it in every now and then. It gets annoying. It gets really obnoxious, and I can't stand it. So yeah, and it is everywhere. It can be in video games. It can be in comics, manga. It's just everywhere sometimes, and so it can be annoying. You just don't want to watch it. But even with subs, they'll do it sometimes. They'll sneak it in with the subs. They'll change things to subs every now and then. And a lot of people hate when they do that. It gets really annoying. But I'm not surprised. That's just between you and me. People who really know about the culture, know about what's going on, are the ones that are upset about this. Normies who subscribe to Crunchyroll don't care, nor do they know about this. They just think that's just part of the thing, and that's all there is to it. They'll turn it on, they be doing something else, and they're just listening to the anime because it's an English dub, or they just don't have that thing where they want to watch and read at the same time. They just want to watch it. Understandable. And a lot of people are like that. No surprise, because there are more normies who consume it than anything else. So normies, the masses will always overconsume the actual fans of something. That's just how it is. They'll try to advertise it to the biggest seller, which is the normies. Now, there goes that. Now, what about me? When do I prefer? I do prefer subs over dubs. I really do. I grew up reading dubs. I do prefer the subs. But every now and then I will watch a dubbed anime. Especially if it's an old one I watched years ago and I would still prefer to watch it in the the, the dubs, like Sailor Moon. I remember when they remade Sailor Moon. I couldn't watch it in sub. Even though there was nothing wrong with subs, I just couldn't do it because I grew up with Serena. I grew up her being a bratty girl. So I always watched it in dub. Even Sailor Moon Crystal, where the characters weren't as same as they were in the original Sailor Moon, it was different. Same with Full Metal Alchemist, Cowboy Bebop. There are some where you can only watch in dub. Fully Cooley, same thing with Fully Cooley. I can't watch Fully Cooley in sub and stuff, or even most Studio Trigger shows. I can't watch most Studio Trigger shows in sub. But there's a lot of shows I still prefer to watch in sub. But however, there'll be times where there's a show that has mostly foreigners on it that are not Japanese. I would like to watch it in dub because you get to have that experience of hearing that voice accent to come along. Where in Japanese, everyone sounds Japanese. But at least with the English dub, they'll try to make some of the characters sound the accent from the country they're from, which is very helpful. So I do prefer they do that as well. Then, of course, there'll be times where I will watch an anime that's full on release on the first day for that season. I will watch it in sub. I'll watch it all in sub. And then they'll create the dub as time goes on. So years later on, as I'm in the lunchroom, I'm mostly talking to my friends in the break room, I sometimes won't have time to really pay attention what's happening on screen. So I don't have time to read it. I might miss out on something, so I will prefer to have the dubs on so I can hear what they're saying in the dubs. I'm just talking to my friends at the same time. Like I said, that's very convenient. So I do prefer subs over dubs, but dubs also have its convenience that I would like to use. So it depends on the situation for me. But anyways, this video's been on long enough, so I'm going to end it here. So what do you prefer, subs versus dubs? Please tell me subs versus dubs, which one you prefer, and not anything else. You know what I'm talking to. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, and of course, hit that bell icon. This has the background of anime. Signing out.